I think one of the things that's unique to ATMC is that we're not cookie cutter. We treat everybody individually. So we tailor programs to meet the person's needs. So in therapy, let's say somebody comes in, I just saw a client, he wants Christian-based therapy, okay? Some other people want mindfulness. We're so eclectic that we offer people what they want, not what we think they want or what they need.
Americans constitute 5% of world population, and we consume 30% of opioids, the world supply of opioids. So that's really 75% of all prescription drugs and 30% of all opioids. So this country is in pain.
In the conventional mental health facilities, where they're employing doctors as part of a network, they've got 15 to 30 minutes to make a judgment about you and to give a prescription.
And what happened, like in the 90s, the pharmaceuticals company kind of assured the physicians that the opioids and all the painkillers are safe and non-addictive.
It's going to be like, here's a drug. And that's really all they've got. And by and large, these drugs are not sustainable. You know, they may work in the beginning, you know, I mean, cocaine will lift your depression in the beginning, but we know where that goes. These drugs are not really that much fundamentally different. They create an effect, just like cocaine is not making dopamine. It's not making a reward neurochemical available to your nervous system. It's spending what you have. And when you spend it all, when you spend all the dopamine, the cocaine's not going to do a whole lot.
They are supposed to be used like only for a couple of days. We have patients that they are on them for years. And people are now discovering that actually, especially mental illness, it's not a deficiency of Prozac or benzodiazepines. So people are getting really smart and they want to go to the core of the problems and be free of all these addictive substances.
The psychiatrist does not taper people off their meds. So, and sometimes they even increase their medications.
Anybody who's on meds or medications for anxiety, depressions, or other behavioral or emotional issues, there's a sense of some suppression. They are functioning, it is helping, or it is improving, or it is managing their symptoms, but it is not aiming at removing the root cause or going at a curative level, or at some level it's impairing or compromising their quality of life.
In our culture, we're sort of taught to believe doctors, believe psychiatrists, and so when they say that the medications are the only answer, a lot of people believe them until they have a bad experience.
Give the program a chance. Just live into the answer. You know, you're here, or even somebody out on the street that talks to me, I say, come to ATMC because we taper safely, slowly, at your pace, what you're comfortable with, not just, stop your meds overnight, or you're going to take 6 months to get off your meds. Not that kind of philosophy. So it's safe, it's gentle.
You don't necessarily need these certain medications, that you can create balance in a more natural, holistic way to get optimal performance.
The problem with antipsychotics is the reward system that most of us enjoy. When we, let's say, a job well done or a healthy relationship, we get a dopamine surge. A person on antipsychotics, their dopamine system is inhibited, it's restricted. And so they have a hard time enjoying life. And they become flat. And so it really robs them of their personality.
You sort of can't see the forest for the trees because you don't really know how you authentically feel about a given situation if you're getting extra serotonin or extra dopamine courtesy of the pharmaceutical industry. And a person starts to say, hey, oh my God, these emotions that had been kind of hijacked by Klonopin or Adderall, these emotions are actually authentic.
There is some value to psychiatry in terms of how it makes the person immediately functional or adaptive or, get going. There's some value to it. If a person is profoundly depressed, you give them medicines, they will have some improvement in their mood or affect and their improvement. But in the long run, you're creating a dependency on these medicines, and you're also mandating, so to speak, for the individual, for the patient, to go through the side effects of those medicines, it is like inevitable or unavoidable.
Side effects are really your body's way of showing you that something isn't quite right over and over and over again. And it doesn't have to be something's not quite right with this medication. It's probably your body still saying the original problem that this medication is trying to solve is still here, and you haven't addressed that.
I'm passionate about holistic mental health and treatment.
They see a naturopath, which is also unique. Not a lot of residential treatment centers have a naturopath on site. We have one. The outings are hikes, walks, equine therapy for sure. And they take them, the weekend staff takes them to a farmer's market. I mean, we really just create a lot of different programs. Just this last weekend, our weekend program director took some clients to Bear, Arizona.
I was a drug addict and alcoholic in Northern California, and I went through treatment a total of 10 times. And after about 5 times, I decided, okay, why isn't this working? And I thought it was strange that when I went to treatment, it was just a lot of talking. You know, it's like, okay, if they put Mark in a room for a long enough period of time and talk to him for a long time, suddenly he's going to get better.
Addiction loves isolation. You know, they say eventually your substances want you alone in a room with those substances alone.
These addictions, to me, or what people end up on drugs, these are clues. These are very valuable clues, and I don't think it takes Columbo to figure it out. If you're craving benzos, there's a reason. Why are you anxious? What is the real cause of your anxiety? Is it all the time? Because if it's all the time and it's not intermittent, it's probably neurotoxicity. You've probably got something in your nervous system that is skewing the teeter-totter's ability to create homeostasis so that you cannot feel that anxiety.
The intention is that you just not remove the dependency on the psychiatric medicines that are addictive by itself, but also to improve the overall functioning of the psychospiritual, biological, physiological level.
Once I got clean and sober, I didn't want to just be sober, I wanted to feel good. Because essentially when I was a drug addict, that's what I was trying to do. I would, if I drink enough alcohol and enough drugs, I'm going to feel good, right? So in recovery, I wanted to feel good. And what I found was, the traditional approach of talk therapy is important, but you also need to eat healthy food, you need to mountain bike, you need to do yoga, you need to find the things in life you're passionate about, so there's all these missing pieces.
A lot of people that we service here, we find that they have gut impairment as well as mental imbalances. So the way that we look at it is we treat the gut and the brain together, and with our nutrient IVs, it's a way that we can get these nutrients in somebody bypassing the gut and getting them some benefits from it immediately.
Do some lab work, blood work, heavy metal testing, mercury testing, adrenal functioning testing, all these different levels of inquiry we do to establish the root cause, more integrative.
Synergy that comes where you have a collaboration between various healing modalities, everything from Western and Eastern medicine, mindfulness practice, yoga classes, Qigong, physical exercise.
A lot of times people try supplements at home before going on pharmaceutical medications and they don't work, and so they think that that is the next step is meds because supplements didn't help. And a lot of folks don't look at the environmental burden piece to this story, and if you have a toxic environmental burden, it's going to be hard for you to absorb these nutrients.
Add to that inflammatory foods. Inflammatory foods are going to create inflammation that are going to burn up your endorphins because they're trying to block the pain that you're feeling from the swelling. You've set yourself up into a position where you have a chemistry that is going to crave certain things. So what endorphins do is they not only block pain, but they block the amount of emotion you pick up off another person. It's natural for us to feel the anger of another person, the excitement of another person. They don't need to touch us for us to feel that. We feel it at a distance. What blocks that normal and natural ability of our limbic nervous system to be able to perceive those bonding experiences or those threats is endorphins. So if we're low endorphins, we feel everything, and then we crave opiates. If you're in a situation where you've been traumatized repeatedly, especially as a child, where you think you're going to die, the natural survival mechanism is for you to chip away at those endorphins, because you're using them up, so that you can perceive those threats more attunedly at a distance. What you're going to see oftentimes is that the medications have this front-end effect of stabilizing people, and when they go off those medications, they become unstable. So you have these really, really smart people that went to school for many, many years that have this very limited window of what they're seeing with their patients. They're either on meds, maybe they're dealing with some side effects that they don't like, but at least they're staying out of the hospital, or they're coming off those meds and they're very symptomatic and potentially going back to the hospital. But there's really no other avenue for intervention there.
I've been at ATMC for over 3 years, and I can't imagine now going anywhere else. I can't imagine just going to a sort of average type of residential treatment center. I mean, none of them are really average, but different, more traditional, because it's like as if we all come together, we all have a common goal, we're all very dedicated and committed to client health and client success. And that's unique. You know, there's nobody here that's really just saying, oh, I'm in it for me. We're all truly dedicated to the clients. We all just speak this language of the soft heart. And when people come in, there's this, I'm safe.
Because a lot of people come to us with anxiety, we look at the whole picture, and often if somebody has anxiety, ruminating thoughts, inability to sleep, they often think something's wrong, I need medications, I can't handle my life like this. And what we have found is that is serotonin related. And if we can detox that pathway and offer some tryptophan or some magnesium, some theanine, different things like that, it can create optimal results without going the pharmaceutical route.
When a person's low serotonin, they ruminate. The fight or flight thoughts around and around their head. It's like they just keep going in a circle. They're anxious and they can't sleep because serotonin makes melatonin. So if mercury's destroying that pathway, they, again, with the teeter-totter, they can't balance.
This is what we're using to combat pharmaceutical warfare. You know, we so often see people come through our program that are on an obscene amount of medications, and their function is lowered because of it.
But like any drug, you build a tolerance. And each time you go back to your psychiatrist, they have to up the dose. So at some point you go, you know, this is, you know, I'm at the top dose of my antidepressant. Well, now what are they going to do? Oh, that's weird. They want to add a third antidepressant.
Basically, the brain became used to this substance, and in time became used to a disproportionate, inappropriate amount of the substance. It's simply not necessary to be on these gigantic amounts of medication and to feel motivated for life.
One of the things that you see being a symptom is people cutting. And oftentimes it gets confused with like, oh, this person's like suicidal, or they're trying to like end their life. And actually this is just another sort of clue, another symptom really of what's going on with a person's underlying neurochemistry. So getting technical, endorphins, which we kind of associate with feel-good chemicals, are really there for two things. The beta endorphins and the endorphins and the enkephalins are there to block pain. So if we're low endorphins, we may overfeel other people. And these are the people that are typically called thin-skinned. They might be called artists because they can feel more about the emotions of what's happening in the room or the emotions of what's happening in the world and be able to speak to that in a way that other people might be dead to. So if a person is genetically geared for less endorphins already, it's just their disposition, it's just their beauty in the world. But then also they're eating inflammatory foods, they're living off of sugar, and they're doing other compensation mechanisms. Their endorphins may be so low that that the world is an uncomfortable place for them. And so what's one quick way to raise your endorphin levels? Inflict pain. So when you're cutting, there's endorphins released, giving an emotional distance from whatever's happening and giving that person a sense of peace. That's pretty much what's going on with cutting.
The fact that I can help somebody in an acute panic attack with some GABA and some theanine or a tryptophan under the tongue, or these different nutrients that can help people feel in control and not feel like they're gaining more trauma with another hospitalization, that is where the magic happens, because it is the self-empowerment. And these are designed to work.
It's just like if we had carbon monoxide in this room. Carbon monoxide is going to bond tighter to your hemoglobin than the oxygen. There's still oxygen in the room, but if there's enough carbon monoxide in this room, you're going to go into oxygen starvation and die. That's what a toxin does. It outcompetes a naturally occurring substance for a normal physiological pathway. So if mercury is doing that to serotonin, a person's going to be an anxious, ruminating mess, and they're not going to get out of it just by talking about it. They're going to find some relief through drugs, for sure. And drugs are probably appropriate until they can deal with the underlying neurotoxicity. Once they deal with the underlying neurotoxicity, they can come off the drugs a lot easier. But before then, it's going to be a white-knuckling venture, and they're not going to probably be able to maintain it. They feel like there's a freight train in their nervous system, like they're standing in the middle of the freeway. There's no way that they can naturally balance that. So the meditation, I mean, you can meditate yourself to the top of the mountain if you're standing in the middle of a freeway, but are you really on top of a mountain?
I firmly believe that the only way to really understand what's going on inside someone's body is to really take a look at what's going on inside someone's body.
You can do genetic lab tests, and you can actually see which medications might work okay and which ones might not. But even in an individual who's got perfect metabolism, antipsychotics really are only a good short-term approach. I started to research through books, 7 Weeks to Sobriety and The Mood Cure, stuff like that. And what I found was, healthy diet. Most treatment centers are just serving processed food, junk food, sugar-laden food, soda, tons of coffee.
This is definitely addressing the whole person. It's not just putting on a pharmaceutical to help somebody wake up in the morning and have energy, and then give them another medication to make them calm down and another medication to help them sleep. This is creating balance within the body so that your body naturally is prepared to go with the rhythm of the day, to be able to cope with life's challenges and not completely losing control.
You're creating a dependency on those medicines, you're asking the individual to endure the side effects of the medicines, and over the long run, there is an unknown element of what those side effects can cause to the mind, body, psychological, spiritual system of the person. So we don't know. People want to get off those medicines for their preservation and the long-term health.
A lot of times when people are on medication, essential minerals are basically leached out of their system neurochemically. So what the supplements do is they help to repair what's called the serotonin, melatonin pathway. When that pathway is no longer functioning, you're going to have symptoms. You could take mercury toxicity, and one of the things that I think the public doesn't know about some of these heavy metals when it comes to toxicity is the human body can't tell the difference between a benevolent heavy metal or a benevolent metal like, say, iron or magnesium with something that is going to have a deleterious effect on your body like mercury or aluminum. So these heavy metals penetrate, and they can basically be excitotoxins. Basically means it ramps up your central and peripheral nervous system disproportionately to perceived threats in your environment. So you're tired and wired. A lot of people with mercury toxicity are extremely anxious, and they want to sleep, but they simply can't.
So with antipsychotic psychiatric medication therapy, with certain individuals, they don't metabolize certain medications very well. So in some cases, the medications will actually make them more sick, more psychotic, and then they'll add more medications.
Often we will have heavy metal testing for people, and we will see that their heavy metals in their body are off the charts. And when we start opening their detox pathways with glutathione, with colon hydrotherapy, with nutrient IVs, with sauna therapy, that those metals come down, those symptoms alleviate, and these people improve. And then when we retest, we see movement on those lab results and those lab values as well, which gives encouragement not only to us that we're on the right track, but also to our clients that have come here for this successful approach.
Through our chelation program, where we're using the skin as a primary excretion pathway to detoxify a person, to rebuilding the serotonin-melatonin pathway by taking advantage of our director of detoxification and our licensed naturopathic doctor.
I was inspired to create this because I went through a version of hell that I wouldn't wish on anyone. I literally was incapacitated for 10 years. It was rooted in a blood sugar instability. We started doing blood sugar tests on people that were, diagnosed affective or schizophrenic, and 74% of those people had an unstable blood sugar pattern. And we're like, wow, this is pretty amazing. Now, of course, that's not everybody, but that's how I got started into it, trying to help people and figure out, is there a biophysical reason why people are having a mental health problem? And considering that the brain is a biochemical organ, a lot of stuff that's happening in our physiology manifests in our thoughts, in our emotions, and we tend to blame it on outside circumstances.
Looking at the neurochemistry of the brain itself.
And really there's a lot of internal mechanisms that are leaving us vulnerable to those sort of stressors, and preying upon them and using that sort of as a springboard to amplify underlying mental health stuff. Abram Hoffer and Humphrey Osmond were using niacin and vitamin C, high-dose vitamin and niacin C, for schizophrenics and for people who had overdosed on LSD and things like that, to see what sort of effect these things would have. And they found over a 70% efficacy at keeping people out of the hospital for more than 5 years just using niacin and vitamin C alone.
Yes, B vitamins are essential to being alive. If you really want to talk about B vitamins, we should probably start with B12. Almost everybody knows something about B12. And interestingly enough, B12 has a direct clinical relationship with depression and anxiety.
Then we added the detox layer. Then we started getting into the 60 and 70% efficacy.
Glutathione is a master antioxidant, and when we're under stress and older, on medications, environmental toxicities, our production is weighed down, and we supplement it. We do it both intravenous, and we also do a inhalation of glutathione through a nebulizer, and that helps just flood the cells with this master antioxidant. It opens up the pathways, and it allows and helps people to detox.
And then, by and large, people just needed, people to talk to in a therapeutic way, because then the therapy would actually work. I mean, if a person's anxious and can't settle down, how are they going to really use the therapeutic tools and do cognitive stuff?
Blood sugar's important, hormones are important, heart rate, respiration, circadian rhythms, sleep hygiene is hugely important. Overall emotional health, finding out why a person is having trouble sleeping and why they are suffering a certain amount of soul sickness.
Yeah, I've been offering equine therapy for about, 12 years now. And I always say a horse can do in 5 minutes what a therapist may take 2-3 weeks, even 2-3 months. There are so many studies that show that nature and fresh air, animals, for example, it enhances the serotonin, which of course makes us all feel better.
So you look at the sickness, which is looking at the symptoms, looking at the symptomology of the person, and treating it. So whether it's anxiety or depression, you're looking at the whole mind-body functioning of the person. You're taking the case, or you're taking the information of the person, not just about anxiety, but you're taking the information about sleep and about what makes them sad, what makes them happy, what makes them excited, what makes them not excited, what makes them thrive, what makes them not thrive, what are their likes, dislikes, So you're looking at the whole person and giving them the homeopathic medicine that matches the entirely, that resonates with the energetic, or with the whole personality of the person, so to speak. So it resonates with that. When it starts resonating and it's given to them at a certain strength or a frequency and repetition, the person's constitutional, that means the physiological, biological functioning of the person, starts getting a response. There's a response from taking that medicine, from the vital force, from the life force that keeps us alive. It responds to that intervention by rebalancing itself. So sickness is seen as an imbalance. Healing is seen as a recalibration back to the homeostasis of the, back to the equilibrium, because the assumption is, or the vision is, that when the body gets the right functioning of the of the vital force, of the physical force, it naturally produces joy, positivity, adaptability, coping, and a thriving. We are born to thrive and be alive and be happy.
I use an analogy with a car. If you have a fancy, nice car, you're not going to drive into the gas station and put the wrong fuel in it, and that's us. We need live, fresh food. We need to eat things that are fresh so that we can absorb the nutrients of that food and it not have so many toxins and pesticides and all these different things that add to our body burden so that it creates negative symptoms. Eating organic fresh food can decrease your body toxicity by 80% just by choosing what you put on your plate. And if we eat fresh food and we eat live food, we're going to feel more fresh and we're going to feel more alive, both mentally and physically.
We call it mountain chi. And I love that. It's the energy of the mountain, and especially when two are together, they kind of multiply. So I call it mountain chi, and they are fantastic here. It's a magical place.
Anything that is anxiety or depression is seen as a dysfunction of the life force, of the vital force, that needs to be rebalanced or can be rebalanced with the introduction of a resonating element, a resonating, what we in homeopathy is called a simimilum.
We are incrementally healing these wounds, one tiny wound at a time, and we're giving a person skills every day, as well as unconditional love and compassion, to help build them up so they can succeed.
The cure should not be worse than the disease. The cure should be gentle, least damaging, and rapid. I think that's where the whole system of holistic medicine is converging on: a rapid, gentle, permanent, effective, with minimal side effects, and making the organism, whether animal or human being, thrive.
I talk about language of the soft heart, and we all have language of the soft heart.
I think the most important thing for people to understand is the love. Love is such a huge component here. Genuinely, we deal with people that this is typically not their first program, not their first treatment. Often they've had hospitalizations, and they walk in the door and they get accepted as a whole. And I think that that is really huge.
We want to find some meaning and purpose that is beyond just ego-based, driven off like accomplishment, that goes into survival and reproduction and safety, security, and you want to go beyond safety and security as human beings, right? So I think holistic medicine has a place there. So I think there's a revolution happening in human consciousness where the next step is, yeah, I have my job, I have my business, I have my family, but I want to experience more in life, more. And people go and search for that more, That if you are motivated to get better, or if you are motivated to overcome the triggers and overcome the propensity to addiction, the homeopathic medicine will keep strengthening and keep liberating you from the enslavement of those proclivities and the triggers. It activates the self-healing mechanism inherent in the body, that we are built to self-heal. We are. And I think the whole the holistic promise is that we just need help to self-heal. Homeopathy helps to trigger a self-healing process within the mind-body system. Whereas the conventional medicine either goes and says, okay, I'm in pain, physical pain, we'll give you something, I have headache, that will stop the pain from being experienced. Does it trigger a self-healing process? Is, I think, the demarcation line between this form of medicine and the other forms. And they both have a place, I think, maybe. But this, I think the self-healing propensity that exists in us is activated more by modalities like homeopathy. See, if you are taking psychiatric medication, you're still feeling a little bit despair of hopelessness that I'm taking this pill, I'm not feeling the best, but I have to take it, but I want to feel better than what I'm feeling right now. And there is a conscience somewhere in your heart. You're saying, taking this pill is not the right thing for me to live the rest of my life, for taking a pill for my mental issues. Because it hurts the ego, it hurts the sense of pride, and it hurts the sense of something is not right to take a pill for my anxiety, for depression. I have to overcome my own internal challenges or my psychic challenges, right? But I don't want to, I can't do it alone. Because to taper, to get off meds is very risky, it's very hard. So your question is, we want to give them hope, we want to give them a sense of a roadmap, that it is possible to basically help people profoundly, not just superficially, but profoundly.